So Christianity goes from being this, minority offshoot of Judaism to, in less than 300 years, being officially recognized by the Roman Empire as a legal religion, and the Roman Emperor himself is practicing Christianity. Think about that for a second. The Christians were being thrown to the lions by the early Roman emperors, and in less than 300 years, the Roman Emperor himself is a Christian. This movement is a powerful force and is going to overtake the Roman Empire, specifically with the Emperor Constantine. So today we'll be talking about his effect, and before we get to him, we'll talk about the role that Diocletian had in going restoring order to the Roman the Roman Empire. Now, the word tetrarchy, I'm going to break it down. Tetra means four, because there's four people, as you can see here, and archy means rule, so it's literally rule by four. What happened was Diocletian went and divided up the empire into two parts, two halves. Diocletian took the eastern half, and a guy named Maximian took the west. What happened is they both had the same title, Augustus, just like you would have the title like president today. But then they also had their version of a vice president who took the title Caesar. And Maximian had the Caesar, who is known as Constantine, and Diocletian had the junior emperor, Caesar, known as Galerius. What this does, it's a form of government that goes and tries to dissolve power among these four men. And the concept behind it is that when, say, Diocletian dies, guess who's going to take control? Galerius. He'll move up. Maximian dies. Constantine takes control. Now, the flaw in the tetrarchy is this. When Galerius is supposed to move up for Diocletian, the person who wants to take control will be, among Galerius, is Diocletian's son. Because you also might have an adult son who's like, oh, my dad died, well, I'm obviously entitled. Who are you, Galerius? Or on the other side as well. Oh, Constantine, who are you? I'm the son. So it's going to be a kind of a flawed strategy, which is going to lead to this conflict. So it's just good to address the tetrarchy as well. Like I said, we might see the system today in the U.S. You have a president and vice president, and they would move up, in the event of a death or something like that. Now, you have two of the sons. You have Maxentius, and then you have Constantine. And they meet in a very famous battle, and the year is completely wrong there. It's transversed. It's 312 AD, not 321. The Battle of the Milvian Bridge. Milvian Bridge is a bridge outside Rome over the Tiber River. And Constantine, one of these sons, has a dream. And in this dream, he sees a sign, which is pictured right here, which is called the Chi-Rho. Now, let me explain what this is. If I were to draw this symbol today, you might associate that with Christianity, right? The cross. The Chi-Rho, just like you would associate the cross with Christianity, was associated with Christianity back then. With the Chi-Rho, it's actually two different Greek letters that are, if you can kind of hear it, Christ. They're the first two letters in the name of Christ. They're the symbol of Christ, just like that cross I drew there is a symbol of Christ. So he has a dream and says, basically, if you put this sign on your shield, you're going to win. Obviously, Christianity is becoming a bit more popular at this time, and this kind of legend is passed down. What Constantine does is he has the Chi-Rho put on the shields and on their banners, and they fight at the Battle of Milvian Bridge. And lo and behold, guess who wins? Constantine. So God obviously was behind it, and Christianity should be embraced. So Constantine kind of owes a debt, the way he sees it in a sense, to Christianity and its role, and going and have him be proclaimed as the grand Roman emperor. There's a painting there of the Milvian Bridge. You can take a little look see if you can spot Mr. Constantine. And if you want to go see the Milvian Bridge today, there it is. Now, he very, very famously issues what's called the Edict of Milan. The word edict is a fancy word for like a governmental order. Milan is a place in Italy. It's a city. And you need to know the Edict of Milan is in 313 AD. And the Edict of Milan goes, and think of the significance here, allows the Christians to go and openly practice their faith for the first time. Now, people always ask, and it's a fair enough question, was Constantine a Christian? I mean, was this a religious experience when he really saw the Chi-Rho in the sky and won the Battle of Milvian Bridge? I would argue probably not. It's probably more a response to the political tides of the day. Meaning, what I'm saying here is there was more and more people that were becoming Christians, and you couldn't ignore it. You couldn't get rid of the rebellion. So the question is, are you going to ride off that wave or not? some examples I have there. He continued to worship the traditional gods and goddesses. He went and kept the religious offices, so I'm talking like Pontifex Maximus. If you look at coins, sometimes he's hanging out with the Roman gods and goddesses, sometimes he's hanging out with Jesus. So he's trying to appease both sides. He wasn't baptized until just before he died, kind of cover himself. And when he goes and he dies, the Senate actually deifies him, meaning they go in and worship him as a god. So it's kind of an awkward thing where he kind of is trying to toe the line and understand, how can I go and try to appease both the Christians and the Romans and their influence. The question that comes up around this period is what makes a Christian a Christian? And within these, there becomes a bunch of different beliefs. One of them, very controversial at the time, is called Arianism. And the main belief of Arianism is that Jesus was a really important guy, really good, all this stuff, but he was not exactly on the same level of God as God. And some people took offense to that, obviously, because some people said Jesus and God are one and the same, essentially. And a church meeting took place, an ecumenical meeting, which is basically a bunch of church leaders get together at Nicaea. Nicaea is a place in modern-day Turkey, so it's a city. And they go and they address Arianism, and they say that is not true, that is not what the relationship between Jesus and God is. And they condemn Arianism. And the issue is known as the Nicene Creed, which some churches actually still recite today. So it's kind of cool. They're reciting an ancient creed, which basically on a sheet of paper, less than one page, summarizes what we would call, traditional Orthodox Christianity, which goes in and condemns Arianism at the time. And don't worry about that there. I had an audio clip of the Nicene Creed sung by a choir, which you could go check up on the internet. It's actually a very beautiful song. So they have these ecumenical meetings, and there's Nicaea right there. You can see Constantinople, Ephesus, all this stuff. Another thing that you need to know Constantine for is that he moves the capital. He sees the East as the land of opportunity. So it's kind of like, go east, young man, rather than go west, young man. And he creates a second capital. Obviously, the first capital of Rome is the city of Rome. He creates a second capital, which is very humbly named after himself, called Constantinople. It's known today as Istanbul, coming from the Greek word that actually would mean to the city, because you would say, where are you going? And they would say Istanpolin, which means to the city. Think about polis, city-state from Greece. And he builds what's called the New Rome. He builds it up into a really great city. He puts a palace there, a library, university. A hippodrome is a horse racing stadium. He makes a forum, that's the marketplace. He built some churches. And the patriarch of Constantinople is basically the bishop, the number 2 person in the world at the time below the Pope. And if you learn today, we'll learn later when we go and split, that position still exists, but it's not affiliated with the Catholic Church. Istanbul, Turkey, the only city in the world located on 2 continents. You can be in the city, this is called the Bosphorus Strait, separates the two. And you can be in Europe on one side and go back and forth, back and forth. There's the Hagia Sophia from the outside. If you look, it originally was a church, but then if you know your Islamic architecture, these are actually minarets. So later became a mosque. Another another shot inside of Hagia Sophia. You can obviously see the Arabic influence as well. Just another view. I've got some good pictures. This is iconography of, obviously, Jesus. You can see a Madonna and Child picture here. Very typical for what we would call the Byzantine Empire. And then another shot of Hagia Sophia and the Bosphorus Strait separating the two sides. And we talked about Europe and Asia. This is actually the remains of the Hippodrome. These are obelisks, typically associated, obviously, originally with the Egyptians. Some people think Washington Monument. And it's actually a park today in Istanbul. And you can go and look at these obelisks, kind of take a look, and then on this next slide, see if you can spot the obelisk, and this is where the Hippodrome was. So the idea here is Constantine helped build a second capital. This is going to come into play when the fall of Rome comes, because one of the capitals will survive and one will not. So I'll leave it on that ominous note there.